Cleveland Browns at the Tennessee Titans, another fascinating matchup. I got to check the weather for Nashville. It's week 13. It's December. Games are won on the ground, Sam. You've got Derrick Henry, Mr. Fourth Quarter, Mr. December run the ball guy. Wear you down. You don't want to tackle him. You got him on one side. You got Cleveland, our best run blocking offense, entire offense, offensive line, but yes, the entire offense in the league, plus two other dudes who you can't tackle, and Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Nick Chubb and Derrick Henry are in the running to be considered the best 2 or 3 runners in the league over the last 3 years, right? I mean, this could be a 2.5-hour game where they both try to run 45 times and just, it's a will-imposing game here, Cleveland and Tennessee.
Yeah, which is kind of fun that way, right? With this all passing all the time NFL, it's actually interesting to watch two teams that are out there to establish the run relentlessly and see how much they can actually take the ball
out
of the hands of their quarterback.
Can I get the refo on this game, Austin? Can we make a switch here? I want to be really tuned into this one because it's going to be quick too.
The difference between the two, I think, is that the Titans do at least trust their quarterback, to pass when they need to.
Do they?
Yeah, I think so. It doesn't mean that they're right to or that it will happen, and they don't want to do it. Like, they trust him in the same way that this is not plan A, but if we have to go to plan B, we're okay doing it. I don't think the Browns trust Baker Mayfield to go to plan B. Like, or even if they do, they shouldn't at this point. Like, Baker Mayfield I think he's become a pretty good one-read quarterback, that if you give him his first read and it's open, he can stand back and deliver some pretty attractive passes, really accurate stuff right to where they need to go. But if you make him move, if you make him go to read number 2, read number 3, if you make him work through a progression, he just isn't comfortable at that yet. And there's no reason for it not to be. Like, this is the weird thing about Baker. Somebody, I forget who it was, posted this chart on Twitter that was his completion percentage over expectations on a per game basis.
SIPO.
Yes. And some quarterbacks are like in the same area relative to everybody else every single week, right? They're consistently above or below where everybody else is. Baker's all over the place, right? There's just no logic to what he does. He's either freakishly deadly accurate, way better than anybody else against that specific defense, or he's at like the other end of the scale where he looks like he couldn't complete anything against a team. Like, trying to evaluate what is going on with him is absurd at this point. It's madness.
Yeah, it is. It is confusing, but I think your points that you've made, which is like the weeks where the first read is there, and those are even tough to predict because when I've criticized Baker, it's when the first read is there and he's just not taking it. It's kind of like what we used to say about Russell Wilson, where there were just certain games where he just doesn't see the field or things just are off. This is more extreme for Baker, but he just doesn't run quick game well. He just doesn't do enough of the easy stuff well. And all that said, they're still producing offensively. He still has the ability, as you said, to throw the laser deep comeback and the seam route and create these chunk plays. Still just need to see more consistency from the easy stuff, though.
Like, he has by far the 2 highest of those games against the Bengals. Like, both of the highest ones are Baker by a distance. Like, it's him way off into the stratosphere, then him again, then a gap, and then other people.
So if Baker's playing the Big 12, he's fine.
Yes, pretty much.
That's
like,
it.
If you don't make him go to a second read and you stand back and let him hit his open target, he can still fire the ball onto a bullseye. But if you interrupt that process in any way, shape, or form, his production drops off a cliff. And that's a problem because most defenses are going to at least be able to knock you off your initial process if it's just stand back, look at the guy, hit him.
You mentioned Tannehill on the other side, though. The Tennessee trusts Tannehill. The last few weeks, I'm seeing the complete opposite. 25 dropbacks, 30 dropbacks, 36 against Baltimore, 24 last week against the Colts. And I know there's game flow involved there, but like the Bears game, they couldn't score at all. Indianapolis, they lost. They had to play catch up. He still only dropped back 30 times. Last week, that's the first Indy game. Last week against Indianapolis, they were up early. The run game was incredible, and he was just along for the ride and had a 70-yarder from A.J. Brown helping the stats just a little bit, threw the ball okay. Tannehill has definitely regressed from his 90 grade of last year, but he's got one elite game against Buffalo. You take that out, which we love to do. We take out one game, and here's the story, right? You take that out, he's a 76 graded quarterback. That is Ryan Tannehill. That is his career. That's like every single year of his career, right? He's 68, 80, 75, 68, 74. He's just in that range. Tannehill is outside of one game. If you take one game out, Tannehill's been Tannehill. And, and that's fine. I think we even said coming into the year, like, Tennessee will still be fine offensively if Tannehill regresses back into his career baseline. Now, the overall body of work is still his second best year. Statistically, it's his second best year. PFF grade, it's his second best year. He's got 23 touchdowns, 4 picks, almost 8 yards per attempt. It's all really nice. So Tennessee has still an efficient pass game plus the Derrick Henry factor. I think that's going to be too much for Cleveland in this one.
I think really the question is which team can tackle the other team's superhuman athletes, right?
Tackling.
Right. Tennessee have basically been riding for the last few weeks 2 freakish athletes in A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry who teams just can't stop, right? Late in the games, they've been busting through tackles. They've been rattling off massive plays that had no business being scores, or just rolling through contact and putting up yards on the ground with Derrick Henry. And then the Browns have those 2 running backs in Chubb and Kareem Hunt who people just can't get on the ground, right? Nick Chubb is averaging 4.4 yards per carry this season after contact. For his career, he's over 4 yards per carry after contact.
That's insane.
And Kareem Hunt is breaking tackles at a higher rate. Kareem Hunt has 43 broken tackles between catches and carries. So those 2 guys are an absolute nightmare for defenses to try and stop. And the same thing is true with Tennessee with A.J. Brown and Derrick Henry. So really, honestly, this game largely comes down to like which defense just doesn't get embarrassed by 2 freakish athletes on the other side.
So we're expecting a ton of the run game. 40 carries each side, right? They're going to be trying to run it down each other's throats. The one other matchup that needs to be highlighted, Myles Garrett's back. And the Titans tackles, we know we've got Dennis Kelly at right tackle. David Quessenberry is playing left tackle now. Played all right recently.
Isaiah at least got on the field for 3 snaps of the kneel downs.
He did. That was the kneel downs?
Yeah, it was 3? the 3. They put on the second team to kneel down at the
Just
last
appreciate that when you write your weekly first round report that he's saving you some time.
Well, not anymore he isn't, because I have to write him up for his 3 snaps that he was there at right tackle as they took knees.
How did he
Before
look?
It was just didn't play.
What was his evaluation? How did he look?
Solid grade.
So Quessenberry's played all right these last few weeks, but Myles Garrett.
They don't have anybody that can block Myles Garrett.
Right,
whether it's Quessenberry, whether it's Dennis Kelly, whether it's Ty Sambrailo, whether it's Isaiah. Like there isn't a body in that building that's capable of playing this game that is capable of blocking Myles Garrett.
So he's a game wrecker, and I think that's the dude to watch. I like Tennessee. Dudes is the name of the game here. The dudes are going to win the game once again. So Tennessee's dudes have been incredible in recent weeks. That's A.J. Brown making superhuman plays. Derrick Henry making his plays. I'm leaning Tennessee because of those things. If Cleveland is going to win, their dude Myles Garrett needs to have one of those game-wrecking types of games.
Titans are 6 points favorites. 6 point favorites.
Vegas is leaning with me here. Cleveland can keep it tight, I think, but Tennessee's a better team.
I think they probably are too, but I do like Cleveland to cover that. That's a big number for the Browns are 8-3, and 2 of their losses are against like 2 of the most fearsome defenses in the NFL, particularly early in the year. Like they haven't got many bad marks on their copybook so far this season.
Their copybook, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is a vintage podcast, Steve.
Thank you.
Yeah. 92 Jim Kelly references.
You're making fun of me for 1992, and you get the Billabong sweater on there from.
Yeah. Austin asked me before we started this show, is that sweatshirt from 1999? And I think it genuinely is. Like honestly, this might have been bought in 1999. It is 20 years old.
References. Speaking of shirts, my wife picked this out for me.
Yeah.
I would never pick it out. She said, "No, it looks good," and feedback's not strong so far.
No.
I told her, and she just kind of laughed. So
yeah,
here I am.
I mean,
can we edit my shirt out, somebody?
Yeah.
It's not attractive. The point I wanted to make here, remember a couple weeks ago when Baltimore played Tennessee?
Yes.
Baltimore was favored by 6.
Yes.
Like I know things change. That was 3 weeks ago. Baltimore at the time we recorded the podcast was favored by 6 over Tennessee. Tennessee's favored by 6 over Cleveland. I know it's not this apples to apples thing, but would you ever say that the Ravens are 12 points better than the Browns?
based off the first time they played, maybe.
Maybe matchup-wise,
right?
It is.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing is that like the Browns are the only difficult game left on Baltimore's schedule, and they absolutely throttled that Browns offense the last time they played. Like it might just be a terrible matchup for Cleveland.
Should we be here saying the Browns are the worst 8-3 team we've seen in a long
No,
time?
because I think they're a good team.
But they've got a negative point differential.
Right.
It's like every week we say what's going to go right with the Browns. I don't know. Hopefully Baker plays well. Like that's what they're banking on every single week to really maximize their potential. They keep stumbling into wins and they're 8-3.
Yeah. So there's definitely a degree to which it's hard to be seen as an amazing team if your quarterback isn't playing well. On the other hand, I think that the points differential is a bit of a misguided number as well, right? Because they lost 38-6 to the Ravens and they lost 38-7 to the Steelers, right?
Yeah, of course.
I'm not saying, but the point is that they are horrible matchups for this team and they get whooped when they face them and probably will the next time, right?
So good teams are bad matchups for the Browns. That's
not good teams. Those two teams specifically, two teams that are either arguably the best defense in the NFL or a defense that's just a nightmare for a quarterback that doesn't want to go to read number 2 to deal with. Against anybody else, they're okay. And they don't lose ugly even when they lose. Like the Raiders, it was 16-6, albeit in ugly conditions and rain and whatnot. But my point is, their points differential is going to get skewed because the two teams they lose against are nightmare matchups for them. So they're going to lose harder versus them than they would against just a generic good team.
If we're going to come out here and say that the undefeated Steelers aren't the best team in the league, we have to come out here and say that the 8-3 Browns, looking at their wins, the one good team they beat was the Colts. That was it. Their 3 losses are to the Ravens and the Steelers, as you mentioned, also the Raiders in a game that you just didn't want to count because it was cold. But they didn't even score double digits in any of those 3 games.
Sure.
Against good teams. They've beaten the Bengals twice.
Yep.
The football team.
Yep.
I mean, they play the NFC East.
Yeah.
The NFC East is skewing our perception of every other team in the league. The freakonomics of the NFC East is just throwing everything off.
They beat the Texans after the Texans started to play okay.
It was cold, though. That doesn't count either.
It was cold?
Yeah, it was cold and lightning and hailstorm and all
I'm
that
just saying,
stuff.
I think the Browns are not a bad team.
What's the best thing the Browns do? They play cold weather games and they won 2 out of 3.
They might not be as good as 8-3, but they're not a bad team, and they're not like the biggest fraud 8-3 ever.
They're going to finish 2-3. I'm sorry. 2-3 in these last 5 games.
2-3, losing to the Browns.
Ravens, Steelers.
Yeah,
and they're the best shot. I think them
that's
and
true.
the Bills are the best shot at making the Steelers, lose their undefeated
well,
season.
I think I don't want to use the term definitely because but they're probably going to lose to the Steelers and the Ravens. This is the game that they have a shot to cause an upset against another good team, and then you would expect them to beat the Giants and the Jets.
I like the Titans, the Tennessee Dudes. Get the job done here.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel. And if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. A little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.